Hello and welcome to the News9 Plus show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. We start by bringing you an exclusive. What you're seeing here is the first look of the Mud Advanced Landing Ground, situated in eastern Ladakh at 13,700 feet. This is the world's highest runway. This runway will be able to land India's transport and fighter aircraft. It was earlier called the Neoma Advanced Landing Ground, but this upgraded landing ground will be completed in October this year. It will be fully functional as an operational airbase. And the reason we're talking about this today is because China is continuously building up on the border. Whether it's roads, bridges, tunnels, helipads, it's thrusting towards the line of actual control to its forward positions. We'll talk about this later in our show today. Pakistan is staring at a full-blown economic crisis. It needs $3 billion in loans to stay afloat this year. The government plans to auction off all government assets, including the Pakistan International Airlines. But wealthy Pakistanis own $12 billion worth of property in Dubai. Now, those with properties include President Asif Ali Zardari's children, Bakhtavar and Bilawal, Nawaz Sharif's family, and dozens of Pakistan Army generals. These names are part of a report by the Center for Advanced Defense Studies that researches international crime and conflict. The report talks about over 23,000 properties listed as belonging to Pakistani nationals in Dubai. The real worth of this could be well over $12 billion. While there may be no fraud involved, the contrasts are staggering. A country begging for loans versus the real wealth of a handful of families. As every elite family in Pakistan has property in Dubai, are loans given to Pakistan being diverted to buy properties in Dubai? That's a question that we'll be answering today. But first, let's look at the revelations, the names that we know so far that have emerged from Dubai Unlocked, the big investigation. Pakistanis own properties worth $12 billion. That's 23,000 properties, as I just told you. My colleague Deepak Bhadana joins me in the studio at News9 Plus. Deepak did an investigation on Pakistan Army corruption called Crore Commanders, dropped on the News9 Plus app. You can watch that later on in the show. But let's look at the numbers here. 23,000 properties, 17,000 owners. This is only a tip of the iceberg. Let's look at the names. Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, PPP chairman. Bakhtavar Bhutto Zardari, his sister, and Asifa Bhutto Zardari, his second sister. That's the Bilawal Bhutto Zardari family. You have Hussain Nawaz, son of Nawaz Sharif, former Prime Minister of Pakistan and the PMNL President. Ehsanul Haq Bajwa, he's a member of Parliament, the member MNA, member of the National Assembly. Shaukat Aziz, former Prime Minister, one-time Finance Minister. Sharjeel Iman Memon, the former Sindh Information Minister, and his wife. That's the political elite for you. Then you have the military. At the top of the list, you have General Pervez Musharraf, late dictator of Pakistan, and his wife. They own a flat in Dubai. You have Generals Alamjan Mahsood, General Shafatullah Shah, Major General Zamir, Lieutenant General Akram, Major General Ali Khan. It's a whole list of Pakistan military names. And some of these names, revelations in the dawn tell us, have been associated with previous corruption scandals in Pakistan. But that's also a question that we'll be answering later on in the show. To talk about this, and joining me on the show are Zulqernain Tahir of the Dawn newspaper, which broke this story, and Ashok Behuria, defense analyst. Gentlemen, welcome to the News9 Plus show. Zulqernain, over to you first. Crackling expose by the Dawn exposing corruption in the civil and military elite of Pakistan. How do you think the people are going to react to this in Pakistan? Zulqernain.
It's explosive. $12 billion stashed to Dubai by the Pakistani elite. And top of them are the retired generals and the incumbent politicians, like who are one of them is the President Asif Ali Zardari and his family, and other one Nawaz Sharif, whose younger brother Shahbaz Sharif is the Prime Minister. And already they've been, clearing their hands of earlier corruption charges like named in Panama Papers.
Yes.
This is going to be a big blow for them. And the thing, and your question regarding how the people taking it like this, we are, we are lining up in the queues for floors, and these
Right.
guys are just looting us and taking the money abroad to invest in properties and other things.
Deepak, this is a story that you tracked a couple of months ago. The Crore commanders, something about the corruption among the Pakistan elite, especially the military. Do these revelations come as a surprise to you?
No, not really. I mean, see, there are two ways to look at it. If you look at how the Pakistani army, tends to produce so many billionaires in terms of Pakistani rupees.
Right.
So one part of it is how some rewards are just structured in.
Right.
So by the time you're retiring as a major general, you are already given multiple plots of land.
Yes.
Now, if you look at the previous chiefs, so you may recall that Mr. Bajwa
Yes.
was incidentally, I think he was connected to a chain of pizza stores in the
Yes.
US. His predecessor, Parvez Ashraf Kayani,
Yes.
he retired to a sprawling some 5,000-6,000 acre estate in
Yes.
Australia.
Right.
Right. Parvez Musharraf, we've already mentioned.
Yes.
So I think in Pakistan, people already accept it, that this is the way things are.
This is the way things are. In fact, Zulqernain, my question to you would be, Zulqernain, the timing of this expose, at a time when Pakistan is asking for an IMF loan, a bailout, the Prime Minister Sharif has spoken of auctioning state assets to raise resources, and you have a former Prime Minister in jail for corruption charges, and you have an expose like this arriving on, precisely this moment. How, what is the atmosphere like? Are there going to be calls for an inquiry into this? How has the government reacted to these, leaks so far?
Yeah, the timing of this, at the time Imran Khan in jail, and just the Supreme Court making sure that he might appear tomorrow in another corruption case. People not buying this narrative of the government and those backing the government that Imran is corrupt. In fact, Imran's anti-corruption narrative against the incumbent rulers and their backers, that got strengthened by this Dubai leaks.
Right.
And it's been all around the media and everywhere that the Sharif and Zardaris, they are thieves, and this narrative Imran Khan built since long.
Yes.
And since Panama, and there's no letter for these guys. And
right.
These Dubai leaks, they literally tarnished their. Although they are issuing a statement that the property purchased in Dubai is not from the ill-gotten money.
Yes.
But this nobody raising this question whether you bought that property from ill-gotten money.
Right.
The question being raised that you have such a huge sum of money that you are taking that money abroad and buying the property, and here we don't have even. We are backing to the IMF and the other countries for a few $1 billion.
Right. Zulqernain, the point that you raised.
To our economy.
Yes. The point that you raised, I'm going to bring it to Ashok. Ashok has been listening very patiently. Long-time Pakistan watcher. You've traveled there several years now. The point that Zulqernain made, that it actually strengthens Imran Khan's narrative. The fact that, look, the Zardaris, the Sharifs, they're all in cahoots, and the Pakistan military is on the take as well. Does this strengthen Imran Khan's case, the one that he's been making for so many years? And where does that leave him, given the fact that he's in prison, he's fighting himself a slew of corruption charges? Ashok.
No, you are right. This strengthens Imran's hands. In fact, the allegations that he has been making for last 1 decade, that all these political elites in Pakistan, they are all corrupt. But if the full list will be made available, there will certainly be people who are in his own party. They must have also got flats there, real estate there. So the point is, Pakistan has this parasitic elite
Right.
and which we always tries to buy real estates abroad
Yes.
with its dirty money.
Right.
So that is a fact of life.
Right.
Some parties are less, some parties are more, but
Yes.
they're all cut out of the same cloth.
Right.
So in that sense, you have a very, I would say, narcissistic and very corrupt elite,
Yes.
which also gels well with the Transparency International's indices.
Yes.
Like they put Pakistan at the bottom, I think 133 or 138,
Right. Right.
somewhere there. But the larger issue of this corruption and how it is going to impact Pakistan and Pakistani politics, it has impacted in the past when it was used as a weapon
Yes.
by some part of the elite against the other part of the elite.
Right.
Like you have seen how what happened to the earlier scam, the Panama Gates.
Yes.
There were many in the list, but carefully they picked out on certain politicians and got them, out of the electoral list, and they were made to resign. So the point is, in this case, at this point in time, the Hukumran jo hain, the people who are in power in
Yes.
Pakistan, it will be interesting to see how they are going to deal with it.
Right.
At the moment, I do not see any reason to believe that either the military, the powerful military, or the political elite in power at the moment, too eager to latch on to these to cast aspersion on any one of them.
Absolutely. Like
Asif
Ashok, the
Jazda-
point
Asif-
that you
Asif
made
Jazda-
about the weaponizing of these previous leaks, whether it's Panama Gate, where it was used to, against Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif at that time. I'm just looking at this 2021 UNDP report, which, Zulqernain, my question is to you, that reveals that Pakistan's elite consumes $17.4 billion every year, 6% of the GDP in the form of subsidies. Why isn't there outrage over this? The fact that you have a wealthy elite that literally lives off, the parasitic elite, as Ashok mentioned it, that drains the wealth from the, takes it out of the GDP, takes it out of the country, now we know, into safe havens like in Dubai and London. What is going to come out of this? Will it be just yet another Panama Gate thing that's going to be brushed under the carpet, or will some good come out of these revelations? Zulqernain.
You see, even my paper spoke to the FBR chairman, the tax collector head, and he was saying we're looking into it, and if found any like tax evasion kind of thing, we're gonna take action. The whole Dubai leak would be put under the carpet, since the names appearing are those at the helm of affair, and the ex-journals, and of course certainly they have the backing of the establishment. There's simply no question about anybody going against them in terms of the government or the tax bodies. So this issue will be used as politically, especially by the Imran Khan, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, and branding them that they are certified mandate stolen and the otherwise wealth stolen, because this is the thing now. Today's statement coming from the PTI leaders, they are using these two words, which I just said it.
Right.
So that will be used for political reasons.
It'll be used for political reasons. Very dark assessment there from Zulqernain. It's just another story that's going to be brushed under the carpet. Deepak, no surprises there again. This is what happened to Panama Gate as well.
My only question is, when will the cup be full? As in, see, the Pakistani people have for long, tolerated this.
Yes.
What happened last year on May 9th was but one flare-up.
Right.
And there is undercurrents of anger that exists. What I wonder is, when will, the water finally go up the nose?
Yes.
When will the Pakistani people, or is there some action that can be taken?
Right. Last question to you, Zulqernain. You see a tipping point, as Deepak was mentioning, that you see a tipping point among the people, that when will it actually, what will it take for real, genuine public outrage?
Yeah, there is a public outrage. You would have witnessed what happened in Azad Kashmir here.
Yes.
People in droves, thousands on the road because of the energy bills, electricity bills, dwelling bills, and they're saying that the elite looting them, taking the money away, and the real-time burden they are facing it. And here in like in Punjab or other part of the country, after May 9, people uh, being terrorized. Like if you're coming on the road and you get a sound thrashing from the police and other law enforcers. So there's been soaring tempers and people. I think any movement around this is going to be just they can give a strong reaction.
Right.
Maybe
So Zulqernain,
unprecedented, but we have witnessed in the past.
thank you very much, Zulqernain, Ashok, and Deepak Bhadana for joining us on Pakistan's $12 billion Dubai stash. Zulqernain's assessment is dark. He hopes he doesn't believe anything spectacular is going to come out of these revelations. It's just going to be more of the same like Panama Gate. But at the same time, he mentions that there's will be some public outrage this time around because the people of Pakistan clearly seem to have enough of their parasitic elite. India is building up infrastructure in Ladakh to counter a two-front threat from China and Pakistan. However, now China has built a road through the lower Shaksgam Valley. The roadhead now is less than 30 miles from the Siachen Glacier. And this has triggered speculation about China's intentions and capabilities, a potential collusive threat posed by China and Pakistan to India's defenses in the Siachen Glacier region. What are China's intentions? Does it have the capability to build a road that traverses extremely high altitudes and glaciated terrain? Joining me to discuss this are Air Marshal Diptendu Chaudhary, Lieutenant General Rajiv Chaudhary, former DG BRO, my colleagues Aditya Raj Kaul and Nivriti Mohan here in the News9 Plus studio. Welcome to the News9 Plus show, gentlemen. I want to start by asking General Rajiv, this satellite imagery that we have seen about China expanding its presence in Shaksgam Valley, they're building a road through there. You're a military infrastructure man, General Rajiv. Tell us the impact this road will have on our strategic posture in the northern frontiers.
Now that is very certain that if that road comes up in Shaksgam Valley, it will have a very far-reaching strategic impact. But then on the other side, you see, we are also prepared equally well what China is doing. So we have also been accelerating the pace of work in
Yes.
the sector north, especially, and also Tumar sector. So there's nothing much to worry about this road, what has been noticed very recent past. We have achieved the connectivity to Caption very recently, and we have constructed a bridge
Right.
on Ashok River at Sase, France. Nothing much to worry.
Nothing to worry about. Aditya, I am fully aware of the fact that both you and Nivriti are a handful of journalists who have actually been to all these places that we are talking about. You were there just last month. Tell us the impact on the ground that this infrastructure build-up has had. You've been there in 2020 as well when the build-up began with the Chinese coming into Galwan. What's the difference 4 years after?
Well, there's tremendous difference. First, we took note. We knew the developments that were happening across the border. But this time around, I think there's a far-reaching realization in
Right.
New Delhi that there needs to be counter steps.
Yes.
Earlier, I remember the first time that I explored this region in detail was around 2013, 2012, when
Right.
Xi Jinping had just arrived.
Yes.
And we knew about the kind of challenges and consequences that one might have. I am told personally, much of it hasn't really come out, that at that time as well, the Indian Army, the BRO and other
Yes.
wings of the government there had a plan.
Right.
But at that time, the government did not have the political willingness
Yes.
to move ahead either with the construction of
Right.
the infrastructure or, in fact, respond to the incursions and the developments that were coming in
decade
from the
ago.
Chinese PLA.
Right.
But this time around, over the last decade, perhaps
Yes.
it started to a certain level in the UPA,
Right.
but far-reaching consequences were realized only after Galwan,
Yes.
around 2020.
Right.
And there has been a constructive development, and that is that when I visited Eastern Ladakh and I traveled all across this region,
Right.
you know, there's a region I actually went to Siachen, and from Siachen, from Tangse, I went to Chushul,
Yes.
and I could see the difference.
Yes.
In 2013, there were no roads at all.
No
there was a
roads.
kacha rasta completely.
Right.
Today, not only have massive roads been built up in the region,
Yes.
but we have 5G connectivity.
Right.
I was standing bang at the LAC
Yes.
at one of the forward locations of the Indian Army, and I could see 5G connectivity.
Yes.
Now, I do not say that the construction of the Shaksgam road, which is in the 48-kilometer periphery
Yes.
of Siachen, will not have consequences. This is strategic, maneuvering that the Chinese PLA
Yes.
is doing. We realize that,
Right.
and there are, things that are in place that the Indian Army is certainly doing.
Right.
The biggest of all is the in-road, connectivity
Yes.
that is being put in place, and of course, over the last 4 to 5 years, we have had many more soldiers deployed,
Yes.
much more resources, many more, ammunition, etc. that is in place as well. But I think there needs to be consistency in this. That is what
Consistency.
will really help in
Right.
this entire.
Absolutely. And Nivritti, you got us visuals of the Neoma airfield, stunning visuals from the roof of the world, literally the world's highest airbase. You've also covered the BRO's road expansion. Tell us what we are looking at over here, Nivritti, these exclusive visuals that you've got us.
Yes, these are the latest visuals from the Neoma airfield, which is
Right.
now being called Mud airfield.
Yes.
It is highest airfield in the world, and this stretch that you are watching right now,
Yes.
it is 2.7 kilometers of the runway
Right.
that will be used for the aircrafts to land, and any kind of aircraft
Yes.
can land on this airfield.
2.7 kilometers.
Yeah. So logistical and operational
It's
support for the
a massive,
forward-
flat ground, and I see an airfield right there, and there's a Chinook or a Mi-17 helicopter parked there in the middle of it. But that brings me to Air Marshal Chaudhary, Air Marshal Ditendra Chaudhary. We're looking at these spectacular visuals. Tell us what we are seeing. Neoma, why is this such a big deal for the Indian Air Force and indeed for an entire posture along the northern frontiers?
I know the significance of that airfield, and way back in that region, I think right from 1957 when we first, when the Xinjiang Tibet road was opened, and that's when we realized that it passes through Indian territory, and at that time the government decided to move it to the forward policy, and that's when we realized that it was an extremely hard call, this forward policy, because it needed entirely to be maintained by air. We didn't have any roads way back then.
Right.
And in fact, right down to 1960, just prior to the 1962 war, we had airfields, ALGs operating from Leh,
Yes.
Chushul, Phukche, and DBO. And they played a vital role in air maintaining these areas. And
Right.
you remember the roads were still not reaching into Ladakh. So over the years, I think at some point, with the geopolitical and sort of threat concerns waxing and waning in the region, I think we gave a little sort of leeway to China.
Right.
Where we actually ignored that area the way we should have looked at it. We did. And as a result, our infrastructure build-up was slow coming. But nevertheless, I think we got onto the bandwagon pretty quickly. And Neoma becomes critical because it's going to become a fighter-capable airfield. It's right now catering for heavy platforms, essentially from the transport categories, for essentially airlift, air logistics, and mobility, which is a very important factor. And in this region, I think there are those 6 airstrips which have always had historical significance, and I call them the 6 sisters. That is DBO, right on top, Dollar Bay Goldie. Next, below that is Faiz, the Leh Airfield,
Yes.
Chushul Airfield, Neoma, and right down to Phukche. Air Force had importantly that we need to develop this airfield, and not just from maintenance and logistics perspective,
Yes.
but simply because of the fact that we need fighter-capable airfields in this region, which gives us a reach into the Tibetan region.
Right.
And that is where this airfield became critical. And extension of this airfield, making it into a full-scale airfield, probably and definitely in the future will be capable of hosting a whole lot of fighter.
Right. Absolutely. Thanks, Air Marshal Chaudhary. This point that you made is very interesting. The 6 sisters, the 6 airfields that are so critical to the northern defenses. General Chaudhary, you've been involved in building airfields like this. you've kind of, alleviated a lot of our anxiety when it comes to the infrastructure build. And in fact, I think that is one of the greatest achievements of this government in the last decade, the kind of infrastructure that we've been seeing, the build-up, as Aditya mentioned, that there were, areas that were deserts a decade ago, and today you have, roads over there, which is allowing, troops to be moved forward, airfields to be built, the Six Sisters. Nivriti's covered that as well. Tell us, when, by which year would we reach a kind of tipping point with China where we can kind of say that, look, we are very comfortable now on the LAC in terms of moving simultaneously along multiple axes of the LAC?
That is a very good question. Firstly, I must tell you, Mr. Sandeep, that two co-panelists today, Deependu Chaudhary and Rajiv Chaudhary, both are NDA course mates, and we have had a wonderful association since the last 44 years.
Yes.
So that is one, and I have been seeing the work of Aditya Raj and Nivriti. Nivriti went up to Umlingla and covered that story very well from Hanle, what all is happening around Hanle. That is the crux of all the development which is happening, infrastructure development in Ladakh, Eastern Ladakh especially. So I will start from top, like we connected in last 4 years. I will talk, firstly, the inflection point has been the present government taking over.
Yes.
As you told in a oblique manner, even Deependu also mentioned, that earlier governments were thinking always more defensive, and there was a regressive narrative which was created all the time that whatever we create on the borders will be utilized by the Chinese to...
Absolutely, used by the Chinese to enter Indian territory. The defense minister of the last government said so in parliament.
Absolutely. This was, of course, mentioned also. China started their infrastructure development sometime in 1960s. And we also created border roads at the same time. But then the funding was not there and we didn't really handle this operation very well. However, 2015 or so, there are a lot of reforms made, and the government took the infrastructure of the borders very seriously from the strategic point of view and socio-economic development. Because the earlier governments treated these villages and towns on the borders as buffer zones. They never developed this, never let this come up. And the road head differential was considerable. I will not mention the figures here for obvious reasons, but it was considerable. So last 10 years, the lot of emphasis and focus has been there on this infrastructure development, and we have shrunk this border road differential quite a bit. And my conservative guess is, if the incremental funding is there, as last 4 years for the GS road, government has given 160% jump to the budget. And that is very encouraging. The border road infrastructure or any infrastructure development is the outcome of the funding.
Yes.
So that is one. So I give a guess that within 5 years, if all things happen as we have seen in last 4 years, we can shrink this, we can be at the parity with China. That is number one. Secondly, I will specifically cover certain infrastructure development which has taken place. Now, DBO has been connected, as Aditya told, in 2013, and later on also he had gone there in 2020. But now DBO is connected very well from Leh, and now alternate connectivity to DBO has also been struck on this 25th March of 24 from Sarsoma, Sarsarla to Gapshan. So that is a very major achievement what Border Road has done. And a bridge has been made at Saser Brangza, which is at 15,000 feet. One can't imagine existing on those altitudes. And we worked exactly in 174 days, this 345-meter permanent bridge has been created. So that is wonderful. And we have made a road till now, Bobring to Hot Spring. So that is a great achievement. Our troops can be there all along the border if any situation arises. The road is on a full swing from Chushul, Dumpi, Phukche, Demchok, what Nivriti also covered. This road will be completed by October this year for sure.
Right.
And we have done our calculations. Neoma is a very, very important project for BRO.
Yes.
It languished very badly. Means this was conceived by Air Force sometime in October 2008.
Right.
And in 2009, the ALG was constructed by a engineer regiment, that is from combat engineers made a ALG. But then that was not good enough.
Right.
That was not good enough. And we have been through the bureaucratic processes and all. Finally, in 2020, government agreed to the proposal, and 2022, the sanction was done. And the work started in 2023 August.
Right.
And my conservative estimate is PDC is 2025 July. But maybe this working season itself, the Neoma airfield will be completed. So that is the kind of work which
thank you, General Chaudhary. A very important date that you've given us is 2029. That 5 years from now, Aditya, General Chaudhary mentioned that we would be in a good position when it comes to China facing off, in terms of infrastructure at least.
You know,
He had earlier also said that we may exceed what China has done, we may
actually outdo their infrastructure. But you know, Aditya, the fact is that while there's absolutely no question about the kind of quality of roads and our engineers and the kind of adverse conditions that they're building in, it's also a question of political resolve, isn't it?
Yes,
the fact that this government has actually kind of done a lot of things when it comes to China, building up on the border with China, the infrastructure wise. Was this a trigger after 2020, or was this realization already there, say 2014?
The realization was already there. I think the projects were already underway.
Yes.
What happened after 2019 and 20 was that there was a trigger to speed up the entire thing.
Right.
That we can't just have a lackadaisical approach.
Yeah.
I remember, you know, the kind of roads that I traveled in. These are not
Yes.
normal roads. I almost felt, and I'm
They were
not
dirt
exaggerating,
tracks. Yes.
that I almost felt I'm traveling in Europe.
Right.
You know, that entire road stretch,
Right.
and there were obviously no traffic out there. And the kind of roads and the kind of
Yes.
obviously pristine beauty that there
Right.
is. And the Neoma airstrip that we talk about right now,
Yes.
that Nivriti brought us,
Yes.
you know, this reminds me of the 2013 visuals from April,
Yes.
when the C-130 Hercules actually landed at DBO.
Right.
What a historic moment that
Yes,
was.
absolutely.
And now how far we have come from that time.
Yes.
You know, the road connectivity that General Chaudhary spoke about,
Yeah.
we can actually go to DBO, to
Right.
Galwan Valley, to, you know, all these major points. And infrastructure wise and strategically,
Yes.
I think we have come a long way. And in the
Right.
next 5 to 10 years,
Right.
we would be certainly giving a, you know, challenge to China.
We'll be giving a challenge to China. And Air Marshal Chaudhary, this 2029, 2030 time frame, what do you see the Air Force kind of doing in terms of building up along the LAC to, you know, strengthen our defenses there? One of the most heartening events of the last few years was the fact that when the clashes happened in 2020, as unfortunate as they were, the first thing the government did was to move up the Air Force.
Yes.
And we saw fighter jets landing there non-stop, this air bridge from Chandigarh to Ladakh being activated.
Yeah.
How do you see the Indian Air Force playing a role when it comes to strengthening our position on the ground along the LAC with China, which is a big flashpoint, and the government has mentioned that as of just yesterday, Foreign Minister Jaishankar said this.
No, it's very interesting that sort of we wind back into history, and when it came
Yes.
to 1962, I think the biggest mistake we did was not bringing
Yes.
in offensive air power, and that's something we have regretted ever since. And but what is very interesting that you brought out, and it's a fact which has also happened in post-Dolam and in Galwan,
Yes,
is the speed at which the air power built up in the region
right.
was something did take the Chinese by surprise. And it worried them simply because PLAF, or the Chinese Air Force, has been weak in its footprint and presence in the Tibetan region. And that
Right.
is understandable because their primary threat is on the eastern seaboard against Taiwan. So all the
Right.
attention was there. But in the last, after Doklam and Galwan, I think they realized the importance, and they have absolutely gone full bore on their infrastructure development of airfields, bringing in more assets and resources. But what is important here, I want to bring in this factor here, is that the air aspect is vital, not only for maintenance, air
Right.
maintenance and logistics, which it has been historically since the 1950s. In fact, a lot of these forward bases were purely air maintained till the
Right.
roads came up. Today, we have come up with the roads and it's taken a long time to get there.
Yes.
But do also remember that in this period, the Chinese have also built up the pace of infrastructure developing the region, and their rate of delivery and the scale of their projects are pretty,
Yes.
pretty staggering. So that is something we need to bear in mind. And what is important here is, which I would like to point out, is that in the northern region, especially from Leh and Leh, Leh Ladakh sort of sandwiches J&K. On the other side, you have Pakistan as an adversary on the north and the north
Yes.
eastern side. You have China. So that's an area which is, what should I say, which has got threat from both sides.
Yes.
So geography is it's a challenge there, and Pakistan has its airbase right across in Skardu, and it links up with Hotan, and the Chinese Air Force and the Pakistani Air Force have been taking part in joint exercises in a long time. There is a distinct effort by China to offset our air power advantage, which we've had till Galwan, and we will still
Yes.
probably enjoy it for a little more time.
Right.
Till the full pace of development is completed in Tibet. So it's a very rapidly reducing margin while we have the
Yes.
infrastructure in place. Unless we this country seriously looks at offensive air power
Yes.
as an important factor, not only as a deterrent against China, but an important responder of the first kind in this region and in any future conflict. We will be in trouble, because offensive air power is what makes a difference. China is weak in its offensive air power capability
Yes.
in the region, which is why it chooses to it depends on the rocket force in the region. That is why it has brought in the rocket force in the region in such a big way to compensate for the inadequacies of offensive air power, which the Indian Air Force has to its advantage even now.
Right.
So while these airfields are very critical, we must also understand that this place, this area, this whole region will in the near future will look forward, and they will most certainly see a whole lot more air activity, and there will be issues of airspace violations, sovereignty, and all that, which is likely to come up. And I won't be surprised if tomorrow the Chinese Air Force is used in a manner similar to it is being done in the Taiwan Strait,
Right.
to use it as a sort of a coercive signaling against India.
Right. Very range of threats that you've outlined there, Air Marshal Chaudhary, and the fact that offensive air power, that's an area that we seriously lacking and we need to build up. So while the BRO's explosive road infrastructure build-up is welcome, it's the larger picture that we should be looking at, Aditya. Offensive air power, as Air Marshal Chaudhary mentioned. Nivriti, any closing comments from your trips there to Eastern Ladakh?
Not only the Border Roads Organization, because I have been in
Yes.
touch with them, and through them I have been covering these areas. Not only they are building some of the very state of art and infrastructure, and also in a very, very difficult terrain.
Yes.
If the infrastructure is to be built on the Tibetan side, it is easier for them.
They're on the plateau.
But for us, it is very, very difficult to build in this difficult terrain. So
Yes.
they are building roads, they are building bridges, and the pace of laying roads has doubled. And recently I visited the Sela tunnel. So it is a state-of-art tunnel, longest tunnel on
Yes.
at that altitude. So these are the kind of infrastructure
That's being built in areas that we struggle to get our even breathe, and that is the kind of challenge that the BRO is accomplished its projects in the face of. But thank you very much for joining us this evening, Aditya and Nivriti, to talk about your personal experiences there. You've been to places where few Indians have been to, and you've covered stories for News9 Plus, and that's the kind of documentaries that they've done. You can watch it on our app. But thank you very much, General Chaudhary, Air Marshal Deeptendu Chaudhary, for joining us and telling us that while 2029 is around the corner, 2030 could be the area, the time when we actually narrow our gap with China on the infrastructure, on our Himalayan infrastructure. There is no time to be complacent. We have to build up our air power as well. Offensive air power is the way we must go if we are to handle this two-front build-up two adversaries in a collusive relationship in eastern Ladakh. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, gentlemen.